Here's where I would give you a typical YouTube video intro where I explain how developer PlatinumGames ventured into the online gaming world and blah blah blah. But all you really need to know is that Anarchy Reigns is arguably their most underrated title, and as none of their games have sold very well, this is quite the claim. If you're a fan of games that have slow pacing and peaceful resolutions of conflict, then this isn't the game for you, as Jack here would sooner rip his enemies to shreds than talk it out. From beginning to end, Anarchy Reigns' dual narrative has a hyper-aggressive, ultra-masculine and bloodthirsty tone, as it follows two protagonists on their journey to uncover the truth in a world of deception. With themes of family, justice, revenge, and forgiveness, there's never a dull moment to be found here. In a world where most 3D beat-em-ups are heavily focused on single-player, Anarchy Reigns' efforts to provide online battles for up to 16 players in highly destructible environments was not only extremely ambitious, but also the primary focus of the whole game, and it got me thinking. Anarchy Reigns was way ahead of its time. With that being said, let's uncover the full story of Anarchy Reigns, and why not see if we can make sense of all the anarchy? Get ready to be pummeled as we reflect on Anarchy Reigns. The development of Anarchy Reigns goes way back to 2009, as this is when PlatinumGames released Mad World, their very first big-budget title. The game's unique art style, killer hyper-violence, and vulgar humor resonated with the hardcore action game crowd, although it struggled to resonate with the mainstream.
That fucker's looking a little bushed. Speaking of bush, do you prefer a muff or a landing strip? On me or the hooker?
I mentioned this in my Mad World video, but this game sold poorly, like shockingly poorly. So much so to the point where it was used as the prime example of online hype for video games not translating into real-world profit upon a game's release. So when PlatinumGames stated that they would like to make a sequel, many were skeptical. Unlike Mad World, which is a linear single-player adventure exclusively on the Wii, its sequel would have to be larger and more ambitious, perfect for its arrival on the Xbox 360 and PS3. By going through Anarchy Reigns' files, we can find a placeholder title named after Mad World's protagonist, Jack Kamen. There's only one piece of surviving concept art, but I do have to say, this looks great. Other early screenshots show that the black and white character models from Mad World were dumped into brand new test environments, and there's also a buzzsaw death trap here too. We can assume that at this point in the project's lifespan, the development team were still tinkering with basic ideas, and they hadn't quite figured out what specific visual style Anarchy Reigns would take. Since Mad World is presented almost entirely in black and white, a multiplayer sequel would need to be in full color, as I can imagine it would be very hard trying to figure out what's going on in a situation like this. Future builds of the game featured completely different HUDs when compared to the final product, and we can see that the multiplayer was being worked on in these screenshots. Normally, that would be about all I could find, but luckily for us, the PlatinumGames website contains developer blogs we can read to learn more about the behind-the-scenes work on Anarchy Reigns, and in one of these blog posts, I found the three core development concepts of the title. A rush you can't find in a one-on-one action game of never knowing when someone might strike from behind. Stages that feel alive with things happening across the stage constantly, forcing players to change battle strategies on the fly. A diverse cast with a diverse set of weapons and abilities mixed together in a heated game that pushes action to a level previously only dreamed of. These three concepts were to be glued together to create the multiplayer online brawler, a new genre entirely. Up until now, we at PlatinumGames have focused on single-player action. We've learned enough by now that we think we're ready for the online multiplayer crowd. Versus fighting online, and not just me against you, a whole group bashing it out. Simply put, anarchy. Creating an online environment where players could run wild and screw with other users as much as they wanted while stage hazards would be wreaking havoc was the main goal of Anarchy Reigns' development team, and just by looking at the final game, you can tell that this was a massive success. It's not all fun and games, however, as many other blog posts feature tales of high stress brought about by tight deadlines, and this affected many qualities of the game. Perhaps the most impactful example concerns Anarchy Reigns' netcode, with a programmer stating, "The internet's come a long way from dial-up. I mean, I've never made an online game before, but it shouldn't be too hard. There are plenty of games nowadays that are only for online play. It's common enough that I'm sure they've got some sort of method behind making it by now. Even in Japan, we have cable internet that can supposedly move at the speed of light, but that's only 300,000 kilometers a second. When I thought about it for a minute, I realized that's not that fast. This game uses 30 FPS, which means one picture is displayed every 30th of a second. Therefore, if moving at the speed of light, the picture can only be carried 10,000 kilometers in that 30th of a second. There would be a gap of 2 full frames until the information you were sending reached the other side of the world, then another frame to process it and then 2 more to send it back. Before you know it, there's a 5-frame difference between players. Other complexities involving the title's narrative, performance, and character designs were also raised, and I'd like to explore this topic for a moment. Anarchy Reigns features a mix of Mad World veterans and newcomers, and they all underwent highly detailed creation processes. As you know, Anarchy Reigns is a game that includes 16 different playable characters in a constant destruction frenzy. Pick one and that character becomes your protagonist. We can't sacrifice any quality there. In other words, we have to treat all 16 characters with the same care that most games just treat one. Comparing it to Bayonetta, it would be like having 16 different Bayonettas or genres on screen at once. Just to see, we tried 16 uncompressed Bayonetta models on our hardware with no image tricks. We had nowhere near enough memory, rate or processing power. Furthermore, sometimes we're met with unexpected problems when we actually put our 3D character in the game. When this happens, I talk to the original designers to ask how we can change/redo things to help the character fit. Also, a lead on Anarchy Reigns' narrative reminisced on a blog post that when he found out that the team would have to create what would end up being a double narrative with different characters, cutscenes, and audio, they all pretty much kissed their free time goodbye. Anarchy Reigns is, above all, a multiplayer game. Gameplay is tested, and changes are implemented every day. Campaign mode works with these changes while making its own as well, then rebalances everything to make one-player mode play smoothly. But every time multiplayer mode changes, campaign mode has to change as well, and these fixes to multiplayer mode would continue for days, and always go until late at night. It wasn't long until someone collapsed from overworking/stress/lack of sleep. With all of that being said, it's quite clear to us as the audience that an astronomical amount of work went into Anarchy Reigns, and as Platinum had never developed an online game before, their inexperience would have intensified their workload. But perhaps the greatest roadblock they ran into wasn't a bug or a tight deadline or a time-consuming cutscene, but rather it was Sega itself. Okay, get this. In the very beginning, Anarchy Reigns was slated for a fall 2011 release, but Sega pushed it back to January of 2012. This doesn't sound too bad, the 7 people who bought Mad World stated, so we're happy to keep waiting. It was at this point that Sega delayed the game into July 2012. Okay, I guess we can keep waiting? Yet again, Sega delayed Anarchy Reigns, but this time there was no new release date, meaning that fans were totally in the dark. Now, there are 2 very interesting details about this that I have yet to mention. Firstly, the game's Japanese release date was unchanged, more on that later. And secondly, PlatinumGames themselves had no idea about this 3rd delay. This was confirmed by Atsushi Inaba, the producer on the game, and he stated on Twitter that this was the first the development team had heard of the new delay. What makes things even more confusing is that at this point, Anarchy Reigns had been fully completed. The title had gone gold and was ready to be shipped around the world, and was even doing so in Japan. Sega eventually provided their reasoning behind this final delay, stating, "Due to the ongoing restructure through Sega Europe and Sega America, the release campaign for Anarchy Reigns has had to be re-evaluated. As such, we are now looking to launch the title in Europe and America in Q1 of 2013. We look forward to gamers in the West experiencing the exhilarating action and unique vision of Anarchy Reigns upon its release." This last part strikes me as a bit tone-deaf, as they would have been able to experience it anyway if they just imported a copy from Japan. But Carnage, wouldn't the game be in Japanese? I hear some of you ask, and my reply would be that, well, Max Anarchy, as the game is known in Japan, had already been fully translated into English. Every instance of text and audio was already completely translated, and because neither version of the title was region-locked, Western gamers could import and play a foreign copy without any issues. Going back to the unchanged release date now, Anarchy Reigns released on July 5th, 2012 in Japan, meaning that us here in the West had to wait 6 months for it to be available here. On top of that, the game was released at a budget price, and although this made it more affordable for consumers, I can't imagine that Platinum would have been happy at the notion of their game being sold for less than they expected. That was a lot of information, I know, believe me, but Sega's restructuring really screwed Anarchy Reigns over, and had it been released worldwide in mid-2012, I think it would have done way better in the long run. When the title did eventually release, it was thankfully a lot of fun, so now let's move on to its mechanics. Anarchy Reigns is primarily a 3D beat-em-up, so you spend 99% of your time beating the crap out of your enemies, but there are a lot of complexities here that do go unnoticed upon a surface-level observation. You can freely run around in any direction that you like, as well as jump, throw, and perform light and heavy attacks. Stringing these together performs combos, and they look sick no matter which character you're playing as. Different characters possess different combo routes, so it's up to you to master them all, and this element reminds me a lot of traditional fighting games. Slower characters hit hard, but they do have a lot of startup frames, whereas faster characters may do less damage, but they make up for it by being lightning quick. If you need to strike the enemy from a distance, hold down a heavy attack to charge up a lunge. If successful, you'll send yourself flying towards them, and this can take unaware enemies by surprise. You can also use heavy attacks to launch enemies, and this will start a juggle. If you've seen other arena fighters, then you'll know what to expect here, as the goal is to keep the enemy in the air for as long as possible by repeatedly striking them, but it's not that simple. The developers have included an infinite prevention system that prevents players from repeating this over and over, so after a certain point the combo will end. By pressing light attack and jump, you can perform an invincible move that helps you out with crowd control. These attacks are fully invincible from frame 1 as far as I can tell, but they do drain part of your life bar, so they're very similar to something like this in an old school beat 'em up. In addition to this, you can pick up items and weapons littered around the environment to gain the upper hand, and these come in all shapes and sizes. You can snipe, impale, explode, or even use your character as a helicopter turret to attack the enemy, and these are only a few of the interactables. Seriously, this game is mad. Eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed this green meter, and this relates to your killer weapon. Holding down the left trigger reveals it, and you can do unique light and heavy attacks with them. Since lights use 1 bar and heavies use 2 and lead to a cinematic, I like to think of these as EX moves and supers respectively. Incorporating these attacks into your combos is necessary for doing big damage, and as Anarchy Reigns lets other players ambush you from behind at any moment, you need your takedowns to be quick and effective. You can also lock onto enemies if you have a specific target in mind, and this makes approaching them a seamless process. It's challenging to effectively describe using just words, but Anarchy Reigns' mechanics, visuals, and audio make the entire game feel impactful, and there's never a moment where the game's combat animations will let you down. In general, PlatinumGames have always been excellent at developing unique action games with very colourful casts of characters, and Anarchy Reigns is certainly no exception. Every single character here is memorable, likeable, and just downright entertaining, and they express personality through gameplay beautifully. Their stances, weapons, sound effects, colour schemes, gravity, movement speed, combo routes, etc. make all of the fighters unique and one of a kind, which is arguably the most important aspect of a fighting game. The characters' personalities and thoughts about the world around them are also mentioned during campaign boss fights, allowing the audience to learn more about the narrative as they play, which is something I've always enjoyed. Okay, this is all fantastic, but what makes Anarchy Reigns' gameplay truly special, at least in my mind, is how broken it is. This game right here is prime Kusoge, as some characters have really crazy infinite combos and other unintentional behaviors that they can freely exploit. A big one that I remember is Japanese players picking Black Baron, as this move will do more damage the worse your connection was. And since the netcode would often struggle between players who were far away from each other, this move would unintentionally turn into an instant kill. Matilda's Infinite is also one I remember practicing as a kid, and it's really not that hard once you get it going. And I haven't even mentioned techniques like Nikolai's backdash teleport yet. With the word anarchy in the game's title, you can imagine that online battles were free-for-alls where the strong would eat the weak, often with really broken items and combos. My favorite example involves an item that lets you throw it to impale the enemy. In Mad World, you can do exactly this, although the stop sign will break after a while, so you can't just do it over and over and over again. No such thing occurs in Anarchy Reigns, however, so at this game, if you find a way to loop the attack over and over, the other player will literally not be able to play the game until they die and respawn. In addition to the characters and their crazy weapons, the level itself would also try and harm you. Action trigger events, or ATEs for short, would happen at random, and they would throw new objectives necessary for survival onto players. For example, a military carpet bomb might happen at random, forcing players to migrate to another part of the map, or a black hole would open out of nowhere and teleport players if they made contact. ATEs serve as agents of chaos to keep players vigilant in a never-changing map, and their unpredictability makes free-for-alls even more hostile, which is something I've always loved. The developers really wanted their gameplay loop to feel anarchic, and with how berserk and fast-paced it all is, I think they succeeded. It may be hard to keep all of this in mind when you're playing a match, but it surprisingly comes together cohesively in an instant, and the lack of motion inputs means that there's no real execution barrier that prevents new players from having fun. It all comes down to landing your character's personal type of BS before your opponent can, sometimes leading to a one-sided experience. Your tolerance for imbalanced and somewhat busted fighters will impact how you perceive Anarchy Reigns' combat systems, but if this all sounds appealing to you, then you're gonna have a lot of fun, believe me. Despite online battles being the focus of Anarchy Reigns, there's also a proper cinematic campaign mode for players to experience, so let's jump onto that first. Upon viewing the introductory cutscene, we're given the choice of playing through the black side or the white side, and the game never actually explains what this is, so I don't blame you if you're confused. Basically, going black will give you Jack's point of view, and white does the same for Leo. This is certainly very ambitious, and it provides the story mode with built-in replay value. After you make your choice, we are given access to the first map, the city of Alhambra. There are 4 levels on story mode for each side, and they involve you running around and beating enemies to earn points. Earn enough of them and new levels will unlock, allowing you to progress through the story. You can also participate in side missions to earn a lot of points quickly, and this whole process makes up a bulk of the story mode. It sounds very repetitive on paper, but each side mission is unique enough to break up the monotony, and the story missions take the form of entertaining boss battles. You'll either be fighting another character or an NPC as part of a wider team, and you can sometimes switch characters if you like. There are no upgrades, experience points, or leveling up systems, so you finish the game at the same power level from when you started it, which is an interesting choice from a developer known for making games with significant upgrade systems. Instead, you have to unlock many of the characters by progressing through the story, but as the mode doesn't last for very long, you'll be able to get them all in no time. Upon finishing both the black and white sides, you'll be able to play through the red side, which can be viewed as the true ending and final boss of the game. The narrative and story itself is somewhat convoluted, and I don't have the time to explain it all in detail, but the gist is that after this guy, Maximilian Caxton, is found missing with his family murdered, a team of his former comrades go looking for him. This is the white side. On the other hand, Jack, the returning protagonist from Mad World, takes in a little girl named Stella and becomes a father figure. Good on him for turning his life around, but unfortunately she's accidentally killed by Max during a rescue operation. Since this incident occurred, Jack has harbored an intense hatred for Max, but after his daughter, Jeannie, requests his services to track down her father, Jack decides to look for Max and one day earn his revenge. This is the black side. No matter which side you choose to play, the mystery surrounding Max's whereabouts and his mental state is what drives the narrative forward, and I personally love it. Okay, let's be honest, the campaign is far from being Shakespeare, but it does provide solid reasons as to why all these characters are fighting together, and the fan service here for people who played Mad World is also really cool. Seeing these 3 back together again is good fun, and even though I've seen this cutscene a billion times now, it'll never get old. On the topic of cutscenes, they're brilliantly made. Some of them can go on for a bit too long, but at least they look superb, and the voice acting is really good too. Plus, we get to hear the name of the game being said in the game itself. Anarchy Reigns. Oh yeah! The final single-player offering comes in the form of CPU battles, and you can choose to play one of the many game modes as many times as you want. I always loved playing Deathball, which is American football but with even more violence, and scoring a touchdown still feels amazing. Now, onto the multiplayer. As this is what Anarchy Reigns is truly all about, there's a lot to find here, and it's all really fun. Unfortunately, Anarchy Reigns has been dead for a very, very long time, and there aren't many people playing it anymore, so it's hard to record footage of my own here. There are 11 base game modes and 2 DLC modes for a total of 13, and they wildly differ in their objectives. There's Battle Royale, Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, Survival, Deathball, and even Cage Match, just to name a few. The latter is my personal favorite, as it simulates a one-on-one fighting game pretty well, and I've even brought it to my locals a few times to let new people try the game out. In terms of variety with the online game modes, Anarchy Reigns gets an A+++, but when it comes to stability, it can get a bit shaky. From what I found online, the netcode was somewhere in between being unplayable and decent, and I haven't seen anyone say that it was amazing or really good or anything like that. Players would often run into lag and other sorts of connection issues that would result in characters teleporting, attacks somehow failing to connect, and certain moves doing more damage than intended. All of this combined with how broken some characters were, and yeah, the online side of things left much to be desired. I can imagine that Anarchy Reigns would work much better with modern-day rollback netcode and stronger wired internet connections, but when using 2013 internet, yeah, it would have been a nightmare. There's a lot of content here, both online and offline, to keep players invested, and I've personally gone through the story mode many times over the years, but in today's day and age, the online side of things are virtually impossible to experience unless you have a big group of friends to play with. Because of this, Anarchy Reigns' offerings haven't aged very well, as the short single-player campaign and non-existent online matches will turn interested players away, but if you don't mind spending an afternoon getting lost in the game's universe, I would really recommend it. Overall, I'm a big fan of Anarchy Reigns' content, but I understand that not everyone will enjoy it the same way that I do. I normally don't talk at length about a game's music in my videos, but it would be a massive oversight if I ignored it here. Like with Mad World, Anarchy Reigns confronts players with hip-hop bangers made specifically for the game, and they fit the mood perfectly. There are so many writers, producers, and performers credited on this soundtrack, so I can't mention them all, but just like the character roster, they all provide their own unique flair. Mad World's soundtrack was darker, edgier, and more industrial within its production, whereas Anarchy Reigns is considerably more lighthearted and vibrant. Horrorcore tracks like Crimson Rain
and the toe continues to rise, now the corner's pushing a new ride. Something going on the real big wheels, just that body bag duty, gotta do an alright. And we gon' keep them clients coming till it ain't no more room, until they break from trying to hold them cause they can't take the fumes. Yes sir, it's murder time. It's time to let go, let's make it hurt this time. Let's give them some more. I need them to see me coming, I need them to run in fear, I need them to think they got away just to find out I'm here.
I've been replaced by fast-paced synth leads and punchy vocal performances that often provide first-person descriptors of the game's contents. Both games feature songs with a mix of first and third-person writing styles, but the tone and subject matter are like night and day. Anarchy Reigns tracks like Gotta Get the Cash and We Play contain some particularly violent imagery, but they're nothing compared to the stuff found in Mad World. A general rule of thumb I have is that Anarchy Reigns' soundtrack is more carefree and lively, whereas Mad World's is just a lot darker. Although most of the songs here serve as brilliant background additions that describe tales of attaining strength through violence, other tracks are more introspective and sometimes melancholy, often detailing the lives of specific characters you come across throughout the story mode. This provides further context in certain boss fights, much like how Metal Gear Rising handled its soundtrack.
I'm so sick of fighting, so sick of blood, so sick of screams in my dream scenes to wake me up. The shit I've seen, no you couldn't even make it up, and got me in a state where I feel my mental break it up. But I can't give up, I can't give in, cause the moment that I do is when the other side wins. So I keep fighting, battling my enemies until I reach my destiny, or there ain't nothing left of me.
Since both of these games provide original rap music, a genre which I'm a big fan of, I've always liked to analyze their lyrics, especially with the song This Is Madness. Performed by Dilated Peoples, who you might know if you're into underground hip-hop, this is perhaps the most technically proficient track in the game, as it does a perfect job of painting vivid images through catchy rhyme schemes.
Rise, flash, flash, floods of chemical treated, hydrogen 2, oxygen, artificially heated, biochemicals, radioactive movements, WMDs turn humans to mutants, viral weapons and pollutants let loose by the fools. In the world so cruel, where the warlords rule with the iron fist, humans on the brink of collapse, second chances, nanotech, scientific advances. This descending to madness, for greed and ego, they brought the devil to dance with humanity. Cybernetics compensate for their hands, the arms, legs, and feet of child, woman, and man. War, cyborg, hybrid, it all feels like a dream till you pull up your eyelids. With a cold heart of darkness, one city is lawless, one city fighting for order, that's what the law is.
Now, I could be wrong here, but from memory, there aren't as many verses as lyrically dense as the second verse of Mad World's track Move.
Yeah, see I'm a monster, I unleash the iron horse. course. I need beef when I eat, boy, I'm a carnivore. I need that feedback, cause you only get from chopping a man at the kneecaps. I relapse, ease back. I got tendencies of making you bleed with a mean axe. He's that demented, seriously twisted dude turning your face to a speed bag. A heavyweight henchman rocking a ski mask with enough guns to make the army mad. But they trying to fight with that dude, so when he come up in the sights, they just move.
But tracks like Anarchy Reigns' Jaw still blow me away with how its rhyme scheme functions.
I'm strong-arming them, bomb harder and slaughter the common men. Conquering all combatants, compliments on my dominance. My prominence, leaving them petrified. They get the consequence of stepping high. Their opulence is set aside. My providence gets rectified. Check it, I'm the baddest man alive. Damn, it's planets where jabless savage beast will not survive. I'm the king, set to swing on anything in the cross of me. Next to blink gets lost of me. Set them deep in the coffin, feet below the earth. Underground, my stomping ground. Thoughts will drown when I'm in town, rocking the ground with shock just by walking around. May they never rest in peace, but may I rest on them an inaudible requiem. Hit hard to the chest of them, I beckon them. Who want it? Standing on a mountain peak as the blood of my enemies drip from my fists to the heap at my feet. They wanted beef, they getting grounded to oblivion. A synonym of sinister, the end is what I'm giving them.
The rapper behind this track, Muse 1, did not have to go this hard, especially because you'll barely be able to make out the lyrics over all the fighting sound effects in a match, but I still have to give this guy his flowers. He killed it! I could go on for eons about how every track functions as a supplementary narrative device, but I'm sure you get the point by now. Anyway, Anarchy Reigns' soundtrack is publicly available on Spotify, so make sure you jump on it while you can. It's amazing from top to bottom. Upon its release, Anarchy Reigns received mixed reviews, and it currently sits at a 73 on Metacritic. When analyzing reviews for my videos, I normally find that certain elements of a game are universally praised, whereas others are critiqued. But with Anarchy Reigns, every single quality of this game was loved by some and hated by others. This makes it a particularly interesting title to return to, as I don't think there's one singular review that I can point to and say, yeah, I agree with this 100%. Generally speaking, most review outlets enjoyed the colorful characters, thoughtful combat mechanics, and the catchy soundtrack, but the story mode's repetitive nature and online issues were lambasted. The innovations brought to the then decades-old beat-em-up genre were genuinely appreciated, however, as a fully fledged online brawler with a cinematic story mode was something super unique and fresh. On a more negative note, something that I personally dislike is that there are no split screen or LAN options. Even though I totally understand that a full map with environmental hazards in split screen would probably cause my Xbox 360 to explode, I always wanted to play a cage match in split screen with friends. No LAN capabilities makes playing with others on multiple systems a pain, as you have to go online. If you want to play with other people in the same room, I hope you have the game on PS3, or else every one of your Xboxes will need an Xbox Live Gold membership. On July 11th, 2012, Eurogamer reported that Anarchy Reigns wasn't doing too hot in its native Japan, only selling a combined total of 25,369 copies in its first week. Other than that, I wasn't able to find credible information reporting on its Western sales figures, which is a really bad sign. I even went through Sega's 2013 financial reports, but there is no mention of the game in either of these documents. With how many delays the game suffered, its low price tag, and overall lack of marketing, I can't imagine Sega and Platinum would have been satisfied with Anarchy Reigns' return on investment, and there's a reason why the game just kind of came and went and faded into nothingness. Sega essentially sent the game off to die when it withheld it from eager fans for years, and when it finally released, it was right before high-profile action games like Metal Gear Rising and DMC Devil May Cry hit store shelves. Despite how darn good it is, Anarchy Reigns simply never had a chance in the market, and it was unfortunately dead on arrival. Outside of the small yet passionate diehard crowd, no one seemed to care about Anarchy Reigns, and its lack of marketing meant that many people didn't even know that the game existed. Copies of the game were a bit expensive on eBay due to their rarity, but I don't think it's been delisted from any online store, so see if you can grab it digitally. And with that, I think I'm all out of Anarchy for today. It's a massive shame that the constant delays and middling reviews essentially killed Anarchy Reigns on its arrival, but there's nothing stopping you from playing it online in the present day, so I highly recommend giving the game a go if you're interested. As of making this video, PlatinumGames are in a bit of a weird spot, as many of their old guard had left the company to pursue more lucrative opportunities elsewhere, although the remaining staff are hard at work on Ninja Gaiden 4, so I hope that turns out well. If Anarchy Reigns were to come back as a free-to-play title on all major systems with crossplay, I can see it being a smash hit because of how colorful and unique it is, and I'm still so impressed that a game like this was given the green light to be developed. Its existence as a sequel to a title that massively underperformed sort of doomed it from the get-go, but it does remind me of other weird Japanese games from the 2010s that, despite not selling amazingly well, did provide unique experiences for players to immerse themselves in. Through its combination of gameplay, visuals, and audio, I'm convinced that Anarchy Reigns is one of the most unique titles Platinum ever developed, and I still cherish my copy of the game because of this. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you had fun. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.